Hello future tech leaders, I am Sindhuja. Based on my own experience, I know that learning the right skills can shape our future. What if I say learning was as thrilled as the tech world itself? There we go. A cloud foundation, that's exactly what you will experience. From day one, you will be immersed in the interactive sessions and expert-led courses that covers most of the widely used technologies in the zone of data science to cloud computing, which brings more light to the life of a techie. I'm so excited to help you and unlock the true potential of a technology. Well, then why to wait? Let's see what it unfolds.
Let's go to the next section over here. Till now, we have discussed about plenty of aspects within Azure. We have looked at virtual machines. We have looked at compute resources over here. We have looked at networking resources here, SQL database storage account. Some of the other requirements over here would be if I have to create these resources quickly within minimum amount of time, or I am done with my purpose. I am done with my DevTest environment setup. Now I want to set up the staging environment. I want to set up the production environment over here. Keeping that kind of requirements in mind, is there a way or a mechanism how we can speed up these things? If you want to speed up some of these resources by reusing your existing aspects, existing things that we have done, we can go for something called as automation. From automation perspective, one of the best resources here is using ARM templates. Through ARM templates, we can work with it. Second option here is automation runbooks. Using automation, where you can specify your partial functions, where you can specify graphical representation. You can create resources here. Now, when we have a number of machines, like I mentioned earlier, and we are supposed to take care of administration needs, in those scenarios, one approach could be, I can log into each of the machines, perform these tasks and activities on a regular basis myself. That's one approach. Second approach that we can take is we can use automation scripts and connect to these machines using a specific service account and make those operations possible. Some of these things which Microsoft is doing for their services, we can do it for our environment as well, provided we have a great admin team. They know how to work with PowerShell. They know how to do scripting and how to connect to these machines and perform tasks and activities inside the machine. First resource that you see over here is your ARM templates. Let's look at that and let's see how do we work with these resources. And then we'll go for automation runbooks. If you look at your ARM templates, if I recall earlier discussions that we had, we said this entire environment is. Once we look at Azure, the new environment, it's all working on ARM model. It is Azure Resource Management Model. One more meaning of this ARM is each of these resources that you have. They are all converted into behind the scenes, into a template before it executes. And this is referred as ARM template. Now, whether you create your resources via portal, via PowerShell, via CL, IO or REST APIs, all of these behind the scenes will get converted into ARM templates. Now, once you have created this ARM template, you can create all these resources. All these members can be part of one template, one file. When I say template, I am referring to one file here. Now, within this file, you can create your resources, virtual machines, app services, which means your ICE resources, your PaaS resources. All these things can be within one resource group. Each of these resource groups can have different set of attributes, different locations as well, if need be. You can have them in different locations as well. Resource group is not a physical boundary. Resource group is not a physical boundary. It's a logical boundary. All components which are relevant to a customer, which are relevant to a particular environment, all of these things can be part of a single resource group. Another approach over here we can take is we can create these templates into different files and we can specify association between these files. I am not sure if you have done the labs. While you are doing labs, there are a number of labs where it asks for downloading a pre-existing ARM template. And using custom template deployment, we are able to create our resources here. It's up to you whether you want to use single template or you want to use multiple single file or you want to use multiple files over here. Even on a primary basis that you see, there will be minimum of 2 files. The first file is your template file and the second file that you have is the parameters file. Am I correct with that? Azure deploy parameters JSON, the parameters file. Now here, when you want to create your template in a reusable manner, it is better that we create these resources right. In a generic manner that it can be modified or it can be upgraded easily for next environments or for next customer requirement. If you see the third scenario over here, I can create each of these members in different resource groups as well. Have a linkage between these resources. If you see that approach which I have been taking time and again for each team I have a different resource group. For each team, like server team, I have a server RG server resource group. For data storage, I have data RG. Depending upon what kind of resource I have or what kind of application I want to build, based on that, I can create my own. I can create a separate resource group and for that resource group or for that team I can give permissions. Say for example, I have 4 people right now, Gopi, Guru, Chana and Arjun. Now each of them would be team leads of their respective environment. Say one person is taking care of virtual machines, second person is taking care of security, third person is taking care of storage and fourth one is taking care of networking. For each of these members, I can have a separate resource group and the permissions will be given to their team members or their respective teams. Say server group, storage group, security group, network group. Now, these groups which I am talking about, these groups will be in Azure Active Directory. Each of these groups will have respective users inside it. What I can do is I can give permissions to those permissions that group. Anybody who is part of that group will be able to perform tasks under contributor permissions. They will be able to perform tasks under owner permissions or reader permissions. Are we getting it? This is how we can organize our resources and make sure right people have right permissions to do their tasks. Does it make sense? Which means if there is any network resource being created, that is only possible via networking team because nobody else has contributed permission there. Before raising points or before having any kinds of issues within the teams, please check within your team first because that's how the entire governance has been established. I will come to governance in more details in the upcoming modules. Let's proceed further. One thing which I wanted to clarify is how this breaking up of resources within the resource group will help you organize resources within your team and make sure we do more and more customer engagements and provide solutions. For those who are not familiar with it, this is also a recommended Microsoft practice which I have seen on a number of customer implementations while I have been working with Microsoft team members. If you look at the Resource Manager template, these are the options within it. These are the sections within it as part of the schema. If you see within the schema, first thing over here is the parameters which is being mentioned. Remember I mentioned about two files, template file, parameters file. Whatever the values are there in the parameters file, those values are coming. Those values will be mentioned based on the parameter that we have specified here. Each of the parameters can also have default values. Each parameter over here can have default values as well. I think yesterday Guru had some points to mention. From developer perspective, whenever we are creating any kind of methods within a class, we have parameters there, right? Same thing will hold true in this context. Your developer knowledge will be put to use when you are talking about parameters here. Those parameter names. Here we will declare parameter name, parameter type and the default value. Whereas in the parameters file we will mention about parameter name and the value. If the value is not being passed from that file, it will take the default value. Am I right with this, Guru? Yes, you are right. Same thing we do in NET or other applications, right? The same thing will be applicable for ERM template as well. Apart from this, any kind of values which are not being passed, something like current date, random values or any specific 2 or 3 parameters, you want to combine together all those things. You can store it into a variable. There are a lot of pre-built functions over here. But if you want to still go ahead and create few more functions, you can create it within the functions section. Now once still here, if you see, these are all prerequisites, right? These are all prerequisites before we start creating the resources. These parameters could be things like location name that you want to mention, IP address range that you want to mention. Those things could be as part of the parameter. As part of the variables, what will be the value or name for some of the resources? Those things you can mention over here. Say, for example, storage account. I want to have a unique value. Those things I can mention as part of the variables. I can get all the details or the values ready over here. Once that part is being done, now go to resources. Within resources, there are two ways. Either you create a resource over here or you refer a resource from another event, another resource group, or another file. Remember, I mentioned about in earlier diagrams. I mentioned about it, right? Those things I can create it in resources. While you are creating resources, you can also mention dependencies between resources. Say, for example, a vmem depends on a disk. A vmem depends upon network interface card. Network interface card depends upon. What does network interface card depend upon? IP address. Thank you very much. Network interface card would depend upon virtual network subnet right. Because unless it has a private IP address, it will not work. Public IP. Yes, it's not a compulsion, but yes, you can associate it with your network interface card. Some of the primary aspects, that is, what is called is, depends upon. Those things we will specify under resources. This is what I was mentioning about parameters. Here you can see the type meta information. There's one more value here, which is default value that's not shown, which is an optional value as per the schema. In terms of variable names, whatever is required you can mention here. This is more of a hard-coded value. If you don't want to hard-code these things, you can get these values from the parameters as well. If you look at your functions over here, whatever function names, you have to create some of these things like concat, to lower, to upper, some of these things. You can do it in variables as well. That is invocation of a function to generate a dynamic value. If you look at your resources over here now, here I can actually put a hard-coded value here as well. But that will stop the reusability of my template. Here, if you see it says go ahead, pick up this value from the variables section. Variables is a collection within which I have this attribute over there or this property over there. Or else you can go to the parameters collection from there. Pick up location. You will have realized by now that this entire thing is based on JSON-based template with appropriate schema mentioned in the right sequence. And through that we'll be able to create our resources. The last section is optional, where optional in the sense whether you want to specify output or not, that's up to you. Now the question is, we have understood about the resource template, but how do I create this JSON file myself? Because if it is based on a schema, I make a mistake anywhere in terms of a single colon or an opening box bracket or a closing box bracket, right? If I make any mistakes there or any attribute is being misspelled, that will create a problem. How do I create these things in a smoother manner without getting into issues? See, everything will not be available to you ready-made. But if you are clear that this is the resource which I want to create, you can look at some of the template gallery over here. From there, you can pick up your resources. You have Quick Start template gallery given by Azure. You have GitHub resource as well. Depending upon whichever source your requirement, you can go to that template gallery, Pick up pre-existing template from there and deploy it within your environment. You can see some of these details using the template as well, which is your visualization using ARMViz ARM visualization. You can check what is the components inside that. You can check for the association between components. You can use your VS Code or you can use your ARMViz to see what is the contents inside the ARM template. You can also use Visual Studio over here. From developers' perspective who already have access to VS Code, Visual Studio 2019 or VS Code, you can open this JSON file over there as well. Not to forget with your VS Code, there are a lot of pre-existing templates which can help you with pre-existing modules where you can quickly create these templates over there, like how you have in Visual Studio. Same way, you can specify your resource and it will automatically generate the template for you. I'm not able to recall if I have downloaded that module earlier. If yes, I will show you that as we proceed further. Let me stop here. Azure Quick Start Templates. Is this the older one? I don't think. This is the new one. There are two of them actually. One is the older one and one is the new one. github.com/GitHub Azure Quick Start Templates. This is the older one. After Microsoft has purchased GitHub, they have made some modifications, especially in the case of Azure areas. This was the older one. What they have done is they have removed some of the least used kind of resources and came up with a new and much neater one. This is the new one that we have. This is the older one. If you look at these templates, let's start with blank template. Sorry, just give me a moment. Let me put this on the chat window. You all can take a look at these resources. This repository is completely available on Azure. You all can fork it, add it to your environment, whichever way you want to handle it, whichever branch you want to go ahead and work with. This is a new one that Microsoft has developed, which is called Bicep. Bicep is another tool with bodybuilding. This is another tool similar to your ARM templates. I have not worked extensively with this, but some of the examples I have seen as part of Azure documentation where they have shown Bicep implementation. Microsoft is developing this as an alternative to ARM templates. This is something to look for. I'll come to this part sometime later if time permits. Azure Bicep can help you create your ARM templates and through that you create your resources. There are some examples, some resources in documentation itself where Microsoft has mentioned this. What should be the command? Bicep command for it. I'll come to that part sometime later. Let's proceed further. Here, if you see, as part of your quick start templates, depending upon which resource you want to create a Linux VMM, Windows VMN, you want to create a storage account. You can pick up a template from here. For every ICE service, every PaaS service, most of the commonly known scenarios, combination of number of services, Microsoft has already gone ahead and created a template over here. Things like SQL, virtual machine availability, group availability, listener setup, every SQL managed instance. Anything that you'd want to create over here, you have a template for it. Let me take a simpler one storage account, 2 files over here. This is the root template, which is Azure redeployson, and then you have Azure read parameters JSON. Azure deploy son, Azure deploy parameters son. This will be easier for us to understand because we have worked with storage account earlier. What is the options that you want to mention over here? What is the option that you want to mention over here? In terms of storage account type, what is the allowed values that you have? Location? Under parameters collection, you have location as another member over here. Go ahead with variables. Like I said earlier, I can use some of the pre-existing functions over here, like unique string concat, and then go ahead with what resources you want to create over here. If you look at the attributes of this member, which is storage account, API, version name, location, SKU kind, these are the 4 attributes which is being mentioned. If you remember, same thing we can specify these values using the Azure portal using CLI PowerShell, right? These are the key resources or key members that we have as part of our pyramid template. Anyone, any questions here? Anyone, any questions here? Subhas. I saw these templates and the parameters files and all in the previous labs. Now moving further, and let's see how do we use these templates. Let's go to your portal. Just give me a moment. Let me initiate the deletion over here. While you are creating these resources, One of the ways over here would be to go ahead and go to custom deployment. And when you go for custom deployment here, you have options for building your own template using the editor. We can build out our own template using the editor, where you can specify what members you want over here. Let me go ahead, add a resource. You want SQL database. What is the name of the server that you want? So, this is Smart B. Right. Whatever server name you want to mention, can you see this? It will automatically create all the required resources over here. Because it knows what are the dependencies or what are the resources required for it. Even the firewall rules such as required, all that things should be created. Now, if certain things are not relevant or you think this is not required, you can remove that yourself. Right. The moment you save it, you have your members over here. Now you can specify these values depending on the value that you have. You can specify these values by using edit parameters. I don't want to mention the values myself. I can specify these details. Username, password. Whatever details you want to mention over there. Click on Review and Create. These will be the way of how do you specify a custom template. Like I said earlier, there are plenty of other ways through which we can do it. You can use VS Code Visual Studio. If you take a new project, there is a pre-built project template over here for resource group. Right. You have extensions over here. This is for NET. You have Azure Resources extension. You can specify your ARM members over here. You will be able to see the templates over here for ARM. Right. As part of the ARM resources, which are the members you want to create over here, it will automatically give you the required details. If any resource that you want to create that is storage account or virtual machine, you can specify that member over here within resources. It will help you create that. Right? This is what I was mentioning about. You can create resource group over here. Within your resource group, you have an option for directly adding your resources here. Don't worry, this is actually with programming. Here, if you see, you have a lot of pre-existing templates for web application logic app. Depending upon which template you have chosen, it will provide you all the details over here. There are a number of ways how you can create these templates. If I go to this JSON file on left hand side, you'll be able to see resources, variables, parameters, right? Click on resource, right? Click on resources. And from here, which resource do you want to create? This is the moment I mentioned which resource I want to create. I'll get the complete ARM for it. You decide which kind of tool you want to use for creating your resources. Now, this entire environment is being created in this way because there's a standard that we have. What is the storage? The storage account that you would want. We can connect to our subscription. We can connect to our subscription. And we can specify what are the valid parameters, which parameters you don't want. Based on that, you can make changes to your existing resource. Does it make sense to everyone? Once you have understanding of ARM templates, how to create that, you can specify what are the parameters. You have multiple options here. Using those options, you can create these resources. There are three things which I showed you in terms of template. One is you go to your Quick Start templates from here. Second is you can go to VS Code. Install respective plugins over here. And through that plugins you can generate. If you are a developer and you have Visual Studio, you can create it. Here you can go to Custom Template Deployment. If you go to Custom Template Deployment, here you have option of template source. Quick Start template. Can you see this? Anything and everything which was available in Quick Start templates here is also available to you within your portal using Custom Template Deployment. You can select Template, Edit Template. There are a number of ways of how you can. Once you understand what this template is all about, you know what are the resources you want to create. There are numerous number of ways of how you can get this template over here. Or you can create your template over here. Let's proceed further. This was about Quick Start template. How to get a template over here. And finally, do not forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel.